Yo, what's up everybody, it's Tuna. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about Magic Find and why it's better than ever going into the 3.23 expansion. There's just some things that stood out to me in the patch notes and other things that I'd like to point out, and just in general some technology maybe that you guys can look forward to if you are planning on either League starting or rolling into a Magic Finder later on. I do think it's a great expansion for Magic Find because of the fact that you'll be entering this in-map mechanic that finally is going to be able to choose your map further. So essentially, once you go into the Grove, you're going to be, killing those monsters, and once you kill them, they are going to be inhabiting other monsters in your map, which get a multiplier to both their rarity, their quantity, or just drop a certain amount of currency. And depending on which buffs you get, it's just going to be a net bonus to your Magic Find setup. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about items and in general the tech that I spotted out in the patch notes, right? So first of all, the Simplex Amulet. Fubgun was in my chat. If you guys don't know Fubgun, you should check him out. He is a total degenerate MFer, and he has, some of the coolest MF strategies that you can follow. But in general, he pointed this out that Simplex Amulet is now insane, right? So yeah, the Simplex Amulet now has -2 prefixes as opposed to previously 1. But has 100% increased explicit modifier magnitudes from 25%. So that's basically insane compared to what it was before. The biggest question mark here, though, is going to be how much will this base cost? It is going to be a very rare base, as they said in the Q&A, as well as in the reveal. And it's going to depend on how much availability of it there is and how many people are going to be heisting, whether you can get your hands on this early or not, and how much it's going to be, of course. But buying the base is actually the hard part, right? You think to yourself, it's gonna be expensive, but surely it's cheaper than this, right? You can see people that are selling Eyes of the Great Wolf for just an insane amount of money. 100 Divines here, you see one with 2 decent modifiers and 20% quantity, of course, on it. So yeah, surely it's cheaper than this, right? It has to be. So yeah, why is it so good? Well, because the Simplex Amulet is a craftable base, and you can apply influence on it. So you're going to be able to get, slam an influence on there, and then re-roll that to essentially have Shaper influence on it with Harvest. And then from there, you can craft it. So we can use Scorn Essences to get a total of 41% base global critical strike multiplier. So what that means is that with 100% increased explicit modifier magnitudes, that is doubled to 82 increased global multi. And thanks to that as well, because it's craftable through essences, we're able to hard roll for quantity. And that is the stat that we, of course, want on our Magic Finders. And I ran it through Craft of Exile, and you can see here that it's an average of 164 Scorn Essences to hit 20% quantity on a Simplex base. And then from there, you have your open prefix, and what you would do is you just craft life or whatever else you want. You could go for damage or anything of the sort, and that is going to be, of course, magnified by 100%. So essentially, its value is going to be doubled. So yeah, 20% increased global quantity, 20 global multi, as well as 110 life on an amulet, for basically the cost of the base plus a little bit more, an extra like maybe 4 or 5 divines to craft it or so, depending on how much the essences are. It's going to be insane value. Like, it's completely crazy for Magic Finders, right? So next, another little sort of small tech that we can talk about is the Micro-Distillery belt. So this is going to be the belt that you probably want to be using. Maybe you want to have a Bisco's Leash, which is also a very good option. But if you do actually want to be juicing your flasks, Micro-Distillery is now a viable option. And you think to yourself, well, why is that, right? You can't use a flask in the 5th slot. That is because we have this here, Nature's Concoction, which is part of the Magi Ascendancy. So that's the new Ascendancy that will be able to get at this league, which makes flasks adjacent to applied tinctures gain 3 flask charges when you hit an enemy. So that's going to be like a little bit of nice sustain there. However, the most important thing here is that you are getting 30% increased effect of those flasks, that which are adjacent to your tincture. And what that means is that you'll be able to actually have a setup looking something like this. So usually what you would see from a Micro-Distillery is that this is red. You are actually able to put a flask in there, but that flask is not activatable, right? Like, you can't activate it. I'm not sure if that's a word, but yeah, you can't activate it. But since tinctures are not flasks or not classified as flasks, as far as we know right now, I asked them on Twitter as well, hopefully it's going to be able to, buff our Divination Distillate from 12 to 19 quantity, assuming that you are using 30% from Micro-Distillery belt, as well as 30% from, you know, the new Ascendancy. So yeah, and on top of that, of course, it's going to be buffing your gold flask by an extra 30% and all your other flasks. So in general, it's just like, it's going to be, you know, extra juice for your flasks, and which is really good for Magic Find, especially, you know, if you are maybe playing with an Aurabot, because Aurabot, you know, you don't want to be playing with a Headhunter, or you don't necessarily need a Mageblood either, and you just want to boost as much Magic Find as possible. But even for solo setups, you know, pre-belt, this is the setup you're going to want to go for. However, once you do get the belt, right, things start to be a little bit more opportunity cost, because of course Headhunter gives you so much power for, you know, basically free, you know, at the expense of obviously a ton of divines. But essentially what you want to do at this point is you want to be swapping to here the Wildwood Primalist. And we need more info on the charms. Like, we don't know all that much about the charms just yet, but we know they are basically reduced versions of Ascendancies. So essentially, hopefully you'll be able to get, you know, +1 projectile on there, or there's many other combinations that we'll talk about in an entirely new video. But once you get your belt, this is where it opens up the possibility for you to go into the Wildwood Primalist. And of course, this is going to be the ceiling that you can add on top of everything. It's going to basically make your build more and more insane. So yeah, once you get a combination of Headhunter with 3 additional charms and that kind of stuff, this is probably when you want to consider dropping the Magi Ascendancy for the Wild Primalist. And yeah, and that brings us to basically Magic Find being completely cracked this league. You know, we have, on top of the fact that we're getting Tornado Shot baseline projectiles being boosted, meaning that you'll be able to use, you know, basically any helmet with corrupted implicits or that kind of stuff. You know, we are getting the ultimatum helmets as well, so you won't have to actually get those enchanted to have additional secondary projectile. So those will have an extra, I think it's about 7% quantity that you can get baseline on that helmet. And on top of everything, the Simplex Amulet, it's going to be a pretty good league for Magic Finders overall. And I think Magic Find is in a really good state because you'll be able to enter and have higher amounts of quantity and power for relatively smaller investment as you were before. You know, getting an Eyes of the Great Wolf is always a big ordeal, and getting, of course, a 2-stat is just going to be like insane amounts of money. If you wanted like a mid-roll on the quantity with 1 stat, it's like, yeah, sure, you can get it for like 12 divines, but having an extra 82% critical strike multiplier, which is probably going to end up being something like 20% extra damage or so, even more. I'm not really sure exactly what those numbers are. You'd have to put it in POB, but that amount of damage is going to be kind of insane. So yeah, and on top of the fact that you'll get quantity and a ton of life, which life, of course, is something that Magic Finders are missing. They don't have much life because they are using many uniques, you know, whether they're using all of these uniques to boost their quantity. Essentially, you're not going to be using Comb's Spirit anymore, so probably back to Sadimas and that kind of stuff. So yeah, having additional quantity on there is very nice. Yeah, the potential for this amulet to be even crazier is there, right? Like, you don't have to actually end up with a crafted modifier. You could try to slam for life, but there's no way for you to actually revert that in any way. You know, you'll have to just annul it at that point. But I can imagine that people will probably go for amulets like this that, you know, potentially have some pretty insane stuff on there. I really look forward to seeing what people can do with these, because this base is insane. You know, it has uses outside of Magic Find, but for Magic Find, it's the first time that an amulet has actually gone toe-to-toe with, you know, the Great Eyes of the Great Wolf. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my overlook on Magic Find and the things that you can look forward to in a 3.23 season. If there's anything I missed, you know, let me know in the comments. And I'd also like to know how many of you guys are actually league starting with the mind, you know, with Magic Find in mind. Of course, Crimson Temple is still there. We still have Crimson Temple to default to. You can just go as soon as you complete your Atlas. You can reroll your Lightning Arrow build into a Magic Finder, and that is the way you probably want to go about it that way. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And, you know, I'd really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. We're going to be growing the channel over this league, and I hope to provide you guys with more and more content. I'm really excited and looking forward to all of the new Transfigure skill gems and all the crazy stuff we'll be able to do. I'll do a lot more coverage on builds specifically, because that's really my passion in Path of Exile. But yeah, there's so many cool things that I'd like to talk about with this season, and I hope you guys will enjoy that content. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys have a good one. Out, everybody.